This is Trisha Terrace from Concepto Breaking News, Los Angeles. In the news, wave of criticism of the BBC for suspending former footballer Gary Lineker for his opinions on Twitter. The BBC's decision to suspend Gary Lineker as a presenter of the British corporation's flagship sports program has unleashed a wave of criticism inside and outside the English Football League's stadium. The BBC made the decision that the former England player will not present Match of the Day until an agreement is reached with Lineker on his use of social networks, after the driver criticized on his Twitter profile the new asylum policy of the British government. The media company said it considered Lineker's recent social media activity to be a violation of our rules. He added that he should stay well away from taking sides of partisan political issues or political controversies. The BBC said on Friday that it had been in extended discussions with Gary and the team in recent days and has decided that he will stop presenting Match of the Day until we have an agreed, clear position on his use of social media.
Here and act fairly. And, you know, there's a lot of people...
Have you been unfair to Gary Lineker then?
No, I think I've acted in the right way through this. It's always been difficult.
Next, Ukraine war. Life in Mariupol under Russian occupation. I eventually found 3 residents willing to speak to me at length: a local city councilor, a retired pensioner, an engineer. All spoke on conditions of fearing reprisals from the local authorities installed by Russia, who blocked access to occupied Ukraine by Western journalists. They paint a picture of massively expensive campaign conducted by Russia to win over the hearts and minds of the people in Mariupol and rebuild a city damaged beyond recognition by Russia's own troops. The purpose of this campaign is to assimilate Mariupol and make it Russia's own. Their accounts corroborate each other and are confirmed by social media posts about recent developments in Mariupol. Before this war began, after 500,000 people lived in the city. According to UN estimates, 90% of residential buildings were damaged or destroyed, and 350,000 people were forced to leave after Russian attack in February of 2022. It is difficult to estimate the exact number of people killed as a result of the relentless shelling of Mariupol, but Ukraine authorities say that more than 20,000 died there. Russian-installed authorities in Mariupol say some 300,000 people are now living there. The people who spoke to me about Mariupol said their city had been inundated with laborers from across Russia, as well as the Central Asia. Oleg Morgan, the Russian-installed mayor of Mariupol, says some 70,000 of those currently in the city are construction workers and members of the Russian military rebuilding. New buildings have appeared and many buildings damaged during the bombardment have gone. For example, the Russian military has built a whole new district comprised of a dozen apartment blocks in the western part of Mariupol. It is called Nevsky, after the river Neva, on which President Vladimir Putin's home city of St. Petersburg stands. According to Russian state media, St. Petersburg is the main sponsor of the reconstruction of Mariupol. It says on the bus, St. Petersburg and Mariupol are twin cities. There are slogans everywhere telling us that we're part of Russia now. Pensioner Maria, not her real name, told me, "I'd like things that way they used to be. Now we live in fear. We have no idea what to expect. In the houses that escaped relatively unscathed after months of fierce fighting, the Russians are replacing windows, radiators, and sometimes heating and sewage pipes. Heating, running water, and electricity supplies have largely been restored. Buses are running and full of passengers again, although the electric trolley buses and tram networks are still out of action. Many schools, hospitals, and shops have reopened as well. Although numerous traders are selling their wars against from the pavement, Maria was particularly impressed with one school rebuilt under Russian rule. It's so beautiful, covered in multicolored squares. According to her, the number of children in Mariupol now is greater than schools can currently accommodate. So they have classes in 2 shifts, one in the morning and another in the afternoon. Russia has imposed its own Russian language curriculum in occupied areas, complicating efforts to get children back to school. The fast-paced rebuilding of Mariupol has revoked envy in Donetsk, the regional capital occupied by pro-Russian forces since 2014, which has been neglected by comparison. The Russia installed head of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, Denis Pushilin, have been denied rumors that the capital will be moved to Mariupol. A simulation. There are other important ways in which Russia is putting its stamp on Mariupol. For example, local residents are under pressure to obtain Russian passports. Ivan, the Mariupol city councilor I spoke to, not his real name, said locals often formed huge queues trying to get Russian passports. They were required if you want to find formal employment, especially with government agencies or in public sector, he explained. Also, they made it possible for travel to Russia without additional stringent checks known as filtration, he added. Next, in national news, Texas girl 3 shoots and kills 4-year-old sister after finding a loaded gun in home. A 3-year-old girl accidentally shot and killed her 4-year-old sister Sunday night at an apartment in Houston, Texas. The incident was reported shortly before 8 p.m. local time, Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez said at a news conference. The 2 girls and 5 adults, all who were family and friends, were spending time in an apartment in Bammel North Houston Road near Tomball Parkway when the shooting occurred. According to Gonzalez, the girls and their parents lived at the apartment. The girls were left in a bedroom by themselves at one point during the night because one parent believed the other was watching them. The 3-year-old then found a loaded pistol and shot once, striking her sister, Gonzalez said. The 4-year-old girl was pronounced dead at the scene. Family members heard the shot fired and rushed to the bedroom, secured the firearm, and reported the incident to authorities. Middle East. Next, Silicon Valley Bank. Offer made for UK arm of failed US lender. A consortium of investors led by the Bank of London, a UK clearing bank, has submitted a formal bid to the Treasury. The government has been working at pace on a plan to support UK tech firms affected by the collapse of SVB. There have been warnings some could struggle to pay their staff from Monday without intervention. It comes as U.S. customers have been told their deposits will be fully protected by the U.S. government, putting pressure on the UK government to act. Earlier, Chancellor Jeremy Hunt told the BBC there was no risk to the UK's financial system as a whole from the collapse of SVB. But there is a serious risk to some of our most promising companies in technology and life sciences. Mr. Hunt said he had been working with the Prime Minister and Bank of England governor through the weekend to come up with a solution. And the government will bring forward a plan in the next few days. However, Rachel Reeves, Labor's shadow chancellor, urged the government to do more, warning UK startups needed to pay staff and maintain investors' confidence. We need tomorrow morning to hear from the government how they are going to protect firms, she said. Facial Islam is a UK right to bail out tech firms. SVB, which focuses on lending to technology companies, was shut down by the US regulators on Friday in what was the largest failure of US bank since 2008. The bank's UK subsidiary will be put into insolvency from Sunday evening. This will allow individual depositors to be paid up to $85,000 from the UK's deposit insurance scheme. However, many have far more money than this saved with the bank. The government is looking for a buyer for the UK arm, with other lenders including Barclays and Oak North said to be mulling bids. As a clearing bank, the Bank of London does not lend and holds all of its deposits with the Bank of England. Its boss, Anthony Watson, said, Silicon Valley Bank cannot be allowed to fail given the vital community it serves. This is a unique opportunity to ensure the UK has a more diversified bank sector, whilst allowing continuity of service to the SVB. More than 200 bosses of UK tech companies signed a letter addressed to Mr. Hunt on Saturday calling for government intervention. The letter from Finch founders said many financial technology firms did all of their banking with SVB and will therefore go into receivership imminently unless preventative action is taken. The firms affected by the collapse of SVB served millions of people in the UK, along with businesses that are critical to our economy, said the letter. The cost of interaction here means that these firms could fail in short term and your technology growth ambitions will fail in the long term. Toby Mather, chief executive and co-founder of Linguimi, an educational technology startup, told the BBC his business was very exposed. 85% of our cash is held in Silicon Valley. So this is a really existential threat to us because I've got to pay my employees and they've got kids and mortgages and so on. One source in a tech firm told the BBC the situation could be pretty terminal for many UK startups. This Monday, at least 200 firms employ tens of thousands of people will find they cannot pay their staff or suppliers because the bank they had an account with has gone bust. The source said, between 30% and 40% of UK startups employing up to 50,000 people could be affected by the collapse, the source added. Michael Moore, Director General of the British Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, said this was an urgent matter and that help is needed by tomorrow, Monday, for tech firms and entrepreneurs. SVB collapsed in the US after failing to raise $2.25 billion to plug a loss from the sale of assets, mainly US government bonds that were affected by higher interest rates. In troubles prompted a run on the bank in the US sparked investors' fears about the general state of the banking sector. What went wrong at Silicon Valley Bank? Silicon Valley Bank specialized in lending to early-stage businesses, and the company served nearly half of U.S. venture-backed technology and healthcare companies that listed on stock markets last year. The firm, which started as a California bank in 1983, expanded rapidly over the last decade. It employs more than 8,500 people globally, which most of its operations in the U.S. but it has been under pressure as higher rates make it harder for startups to raise money through private fundraising or share sales. More clients were withdrawing deposits in a trend that snowballed last week. Silicon Valley Bank UK, which has stopped making payments or accepted deposits, is officially expected to go into insolvency on Sunday evening.